SynthStories starts right now.
Am I the a-hole because I really don't care that my dad took his anger at my mom out on my half-siblings? My parents only have me, 18 male, together because my mom cheated on my dad when I was younger, 1 to 3, and they broke up as soon as my dad found out about it, and he found out because my mom got pregnant with the guy she's married to's baby. My parents weren't married, so the breakup was clean. The custody situation wasn't. Mom wanted primary. Dad wanted shared or primary. Shared was granted and I split time between both houses every 7 days. My mom married the guy she cheated with and they have more kids together. My dad hates my mom and her husband. I don't blame him. He never wanted anything to do with my half-siblings either, and I never blamed him for that either. My mom, her husband and some of my aunts and uncles had issues with my dad wanting nothing to do with my half-siblings and the fact he wouldn't do anything to help them or to make sure they had a good life. They see it as him taking his issues with mom out on them. Some stuff that happened that was talked about around me. When I was 8 and my half-brother was 5, nobody showed up to pick him up from school. I was at the homework club and Dad picked me up afterward. One of the teachers knew me and my half-brother were half-siblings, so she asked my dad about my mom and her husband, and Dad tried calling for her since they couldn't get an answer and nobody answered that time either. My dad took me home and left my half-brother. That was seen as some huge deal. Turns out my mom and her husband went to a funeral and had their phones off, and a friend of my mom's was supposed to pick up my half-brother and forgot. Another time I ended up in hospital and both my parents were there and so were some of my half-siblings. Dad bought me snacks and drinks while we waited and he took me for food after. My mom didn't have money and she kept glaring at Dad for not getting my half-siblings something when they complained they were hungry and thirsty too. That was another thing for Mom and my aunts and uncles to complain about. My dad used to throw the best birthday parties for me and my half-siblings were never invited. He gave me the option but I never wanted to invite them and Dad didn't either, so he wasn't going to push. My mom and her husband fell on hard times. My dad refused to send stuff to my half-siblings. I was going to summer camp and all my extracurriculars still. My half-siblings didn't get to do any of that. My dad knew and my mom asked him for extra help but he said no. That's when my dad was supposed to have said he didn't give a crap if my half-siblings had nothing because they weren't his kids. My mom, her husband and my aunts and uncles were horrified and this still bothers them. A few years ago my mom and her husband were in an accident. My mom's friend was with us but had to go, so I called Dad and he picked me up, but my half-siblings were left there. When my aunts and uncles found out, they were calling and texting me and Dad like crazy for Dad to do the right thing and take all of us to the hospital and then take me home with him if he had to. Not sure what ended up going down, but Mom was furious when she learned what happened too, and her husband wasn't happy either. There were other things too. All of it was very much stuff I didn't care about, and I said that to my mom the last time we talked a few months ago. I told my aunts and uncles that too. They said Dad took his anger at Mom out on my half-siblings and that was wrong. So I said again that I didn't care and that they weren't going to turn me against my dad. They brought up if something worse had happened and I said it wasn't my dad's problem. He only has me and he always took care of me. You'd think I told them all that they could go and die with how they reacted. It's why I walked out even though I wasn't 18 yet and I just moved in with Dad. I haven't talked to any of them since, but they text and DM me that I should care and I need to fix myself and stop siding with someone who would happily let my half-siblings rot. The thing about all of this is I don't see Dad's actions or inactions as taking stuff out on my half-siblings. They just weren't his kids or kids he had any duty to, and so he didn't do more for them than he would any other random kid. Am I the a-hole?
Am I the a-hole for destroying my relationship with my daughter and ending my marriage? I, 41 male, have been with my wife, 41 female, for 24 years. We have 3 kids. 2 of which are adults, 21 female and 18 male. My marriage has been a bit rocky for a few years. I have been racked with anxiety, stress, and fear which I have let affect me and our marriage. A few weeks ago my daughter came to me and told me that through work with her therapist she has determined that trauma she experienced during her childhood caused by me is responsible for her failed relationships and bad behavior. I shut it down. I told her all her good qualities should be her focus. This worsened our relationship as she said I wasn't listening and continued to double down on me taking accountability. I told her, I certainly made mistakes and a lot of them, but I did my best. The rift significantly worsened when she told me that wasn't good enough and that I didn't do my best. Along with other comments that I took as disrespect and hurtful, such as, you only have an emotional connection if it benefits you. I then began to seek guidance. I spoke about the situation with multiple family members and friends as well as my therapist. 9 out of 10, including my mother and brother, told me she was being disrespectful and that she needs to experience life and gain perspective. I tried multiple olive branches to smooth it over to no avail. Finally, after trying and her refusing to speak to me, I told her, my name is on the deed, and implied that if she won't talk to me then she can get out. This had devastating consequences. My wife immediately told me if I kicked her out she would divorce me. Several horrible arguments erupted, culminating in my daughter calling the cops on me, trying to have me removed from my home. It didn't work because I was not physical or violent. I recorded the whole fight, and while I am not innocent, my wife and daughter said some things that really hurt me. I thought, this is it, there is no coming back. My anger towards my daughter for the entire situation came to a head from her calling the cops, and I told her, don't talk to me like I'm your father, you are no daughter of mine. I regretted it instantly. All in one moment I saw all of the hurt and pain this all caused her. I can't stop seeing her crying because of me. I feel like my support system led me down the wrong path. Now my daughter wants nothing to do with me. My wife says divorce is non-negotiable, and I feel lost, confused, broken, and angry. My mother-in-law talked to me and helped me see the forest through the trees, but it's done and I fucked everything up. Diving deeper, that anxiety, stress, and fear have made me insufferable and difficult that my wife has had enough. I want to save my family. I love my wife and daughter. I'm an idiot. However, my mom and brother say I did and am doing the right thing. It sure doesn't feel like it. Am I the a-hole?
Am I the a-hole for expecting my sister to finally pay me back for her wedding 5 years later? I, 32 female, am still so frustrated over this, and honestly I need some outside perspective. 5 years ago my sister, 30 female, got married and was struggling financially at the time. I stepped in to help and ended up covering a big chunk of her wedding costs, the venue deposit, catering, and decorations. We agreed she'd pay me back once she got on her feet, and I trusted her. But every time I brought it up over the years, she'd brush it off with things like, "Don't worry about it," or "You were such a big help, just think of it as my gift from you." I didn't want to start family drama, so I let it slide, but it's always bothered me. Fast forward to last week, she calls asking if I can help her with a down payment for a new house. The amount she needs? Pretty much the same as what she still owes me. I told her I'd be willing to help, but only after she pays me back for the wedding first. She got defensive immediately, saying it's been so long and that I'm being unfair for holding it over her head. She insists she thought I had just gifted her the money. Now she's not speaking to me, and even my parents are trying to convince me to let it go for the sake of peace. But it feels like she's been taking advantage of my kindness for years, and I'm tired of pretending it's fine. So am I the a-hole for expecting her to pay me back after all this time, or is she just avoiding accountability? Date. Wow, I didn't expect my post to get as much attention as it did. Thank you to everyone who commented. I read through hundreds of them, and honestly it gave me the clarity and backbone I really needed. So here's what happened after I posted. A few days later, my sister texted me out of the blue with this passive-aggressive message saying, "I hope you're happy. Mom's upset because we're fighting again. Money shouldn't come between family." I replied calmly that money isn't what's between us. It's her lack of honesty and accountability. She didn't like that. That night, she called me and launched into this emotional guilt trip about how hard things have been for her, how she and her husband are trying their best, and how it's just money. I told her point blank, "It's not just money. It's about respect. You promised to pay me back, and you never did." Then I said something I've been holding in for years. "You only remember I exist when you need something." There was a long silence, then she hung up. Cue my parents stepping in. My mom called saying I'm creating division and that family doesn't keep score. My dad was more neutral but admitted that my sister does have a history of forgetting her debts. Apparently, she's borrowed from him too. Here's where things really turned. My brother-in-law actually reached out to me privately. He apologized, said he didn't realize I'd paid for so much of the wedding and that my sister had downplayed it as a small loan. He told me he'd talk to her about making things right. 2 days later, I got a transfer for exactly half the amount she owes me with a message. It's not the full repayment, but it's progress. The real kicker? My sister then posted this cryptic story on Facebook. So yeah, she's still being petty, but I honestly don't even care anymore. I finally stood up for myself, and that feels better than the money ever could. Verdict from me, I'm not the asshole. I was just tired of being the family ATM with a smile. If this whole thing taught me anything, it's that boundaries don't make you cold, they protect you from being taken advantage of.
Am I the a-hole for feeling betrayed even though my husband treats me well and says he still wants our family together? Hi everyone, I 32 female, have been married to my husband 38 male for 12 years. We met when I was doing my internship at his company while I was still in college. We got married before I even graduated. We have 2 sons, 7 and 5. My husband owns a construction and architecture firm, and we work together. Until recently, I thought we had a happy marriage. But a few weeks ago, I accidentally found out that my husband is still in love with his ex-girlfriend, that I overheard it completely by chance. I was supposed to stay home that day, but I decided last minute to go to the office. When I arrived, he was talking with one of his close friends. His ex had apparently left her husband and was struggling financially. She had reached out to my husband for help finding a place to live, and he was helping her. Then I heard him say, "My heart still races when I'm around her." I froze. It felt like the air left my lungs. I started crying uncontrollably. Some of our employees saw me, sat me down, and gave me water. Then my husband came. Later, when I confronted him, he said that when his ex got married, he decided it was time for him to settle down too, and that I was a good match for him at that time. He said our lifestyles, values, and families aligned well. He told me he truly values me and never wanted to hurt me. He said, "I couldn't marry the woman I loved, but you did marry the man you love. I didn't want you to go through the same pain, so I worked hard to make sure you were happy." He also said, "Marriage requires work, but you never had to work for it because I worked to give you a perfect marriage." To be fair, we've never had any major issues. Our families get along extremely well. We even live really close, which makes childcare easy. We often travel together while our parents look after the kids. But hearing that he's still in love with someone else broke something inside me. He told me, "You're the most important person in my life. I don't want to break our family apart. I want our kids to grow up happy." Then he said, "I know you'd never leave the kids. If you ever wanted to remarry, you'd want someone who treats you and them well. So why can't that person be me?" I'm completely lost. Should I stay in this marriage? Can I ever truly forgive this? Update. First of all, thank you all so much for your comments and kind words. Reading what you wrote really helped me realize that I need some time and therapy to clear my head. I called my husband and told him that I'm going to start therapy, that I want to be alone for a while, and that it would be best if we permanently lived in separate houses. He said he absolutely doesn't want a divorce, that he will never leave me, and that our marriage is strong enough to overcome this. He told me, "You're the most important person in my life, and I can't just let you go." He suggested that we keep living in the same house and go to couples therapy together. But as many of you reminded me, I can't keep living with the reality that he doesn't love me the way I thought he did. I told him I need to work through my feelings first. I also have to admit, I'm a little scared of what I might hear in therapy. It's 11:30 p.m. where I live right now, and my husband is sitting outside in his car. He's been at the hotel for a week, but after this conversation, he said he'll live in the car until I let him come home. He's been out there for about an hour now.
My boyfriend and I's best friends don't like us dating. My boyfriend, Will, male 24, and I, Penelope, female 23, have been dating for 6 months. Before we started dating, we were very close friends for a year. We met through a small party my best friend, Maggie, female 23, hosted, and we got along great from the get-go. From the beginning Maggie thought we would be good together, though she didn't tell me about that until I finally started showing interest in him. Maggie is dating Mark, male 24. Mark and Will are very close friends and have been for a long time. I have never known Mark very well because I was in college in another state for the majority of Maggie and Mark's relationship, but I have always been very supportive because of how happy he makes Maggie. When I got back from college I started really hanging out with Will. It became clear to me that Will had a crush on me, but I was still not interested and he never pushed it, so I don't pay it much mind. Eventually I started to catch feelings as well. At that point both Will and I had never dated anyone and were very inexperienced, but I was confident Will liked me, so I confided in Maggie that I was thinking of asking him out. She was extremely supportive and excited for me. There was about a week between when I would hang out with Will next, and I didn't want to ask him out over call or text, so it seemed like I was delaying. At one point Mark got my number from Maggie and messaged me that I shouldn't chicken out and I just need to do it, so I knew he was supportive as well. Maggie and Mark even told me point blank that Will had liked me for a very long time but was never going to ask me out because he was scared of losing our friendship, something I was scared of too, and admittedly if he had asked me out before I came to my own conclusion that I liked him I would have said no. Well, eventually I asked Will out, he says yes, and we are super happy and Maggie and Mark are stoked for us. I am extremely happy with Will and the 6 months have been like a dream. I love him so much. The problem. Since we started dating, but more specifically within that last month or so, it feels like Maggie and Mark have become highly critical and even disapproving of our relationship. This is both of ours first relationship, so I'm worried that we may be doing something wrong, and I value their opinion, but it's starting to become a bit much. Right when Will and I started dating he got a new job and his schedule is pretty brutal. With my work schedule we are only able to meet on 2 days after I get off work, so our time is limited. Unfortunately, we don't share any days off. This means that we have been spending that time together, so we get to see each other as much as possible. We also talk on the phone 2 to 3 times a day during our lunch breaks and drives from work. I wish I could see him more, but this has been working for us. Though we have been spending all our overlapping time together, there have been a few occasions for both of us where we had other plans during that time and have spent it away from each other to do other things. I have hung out with Mark and Maggie once and I was excited about it because I wanted to finally get to know Mark better. It was all going well and we got along. Then Will came over when he got off work and suddenly it felt like Mark didn't like me very much. I had to leave shortly after Will got there anyway, so I didn't pay it any mind. Well, Mark and Maggie came over to Will's place and we all hung out. I once again got a very distinct feeling that Mark didn't like me, and it was really disheartening. It seems like he likes me in the context of Maggie and hanging out together, but when Will is brought in the picture he doesn't. This is also confusing because he was so excited about us dating to begin with. I had been thinking about moving in with Will and was making plans with him to do so in a few months. Maggie was very against the idea. She and Mark also had a talk with Will saying they disapproved separate from me. Now Will wants to wait when he was on board before. We had been talking about moving in together since before we started dating, but put a pause on it since we figured we shouldn't jump into it now that our relationship status had changed. I was a bit upset at first but have since accepted it. If he thinks we aren't ready yet, then we aren't. We both need to be completely on board. Having said that, they have begun to give some other opinions and it seems like they are all negative against me. Examples. Will has told me that Mark is concerned that he is changing himself for me. He is working a lower-paying job in order to ensure job security and benefits like retirement and insurance. He finally got his first apartment by himself so we could have our own space since I live with my parents. He no longer does weed because I told him from the get-go that was a hard line for me. I don't mind that people do it, but it makes me uncomfortable to be around and I have no interest in dating someone who does it. He is doing budgeting now instead of being loose with his money, and he is less silly, which Will said he meant that Will thinks about his actions a bit more and is a little less spontaneous. Will is a bit upset by this himself because he feels he is finally growing up a bit and making some better life decisions. On my part, Maggie bought a very bachelor pad-like bathroom set as a joke for Will. I don't like it. Will kept it up for a bit to appease them, then replaced it with some more neutral stuff to appease me. I really appreciate it, but it made Maggie and Mark upset. Maggie asked me, why can't you let him keep it? Which hurt me because he is the one that made the decision to take it down. Will and I have also had a discussion about posters that he has. I don't like them, but Maggie and Mark convinced him to put them up anyway. He has yet to put them up because he is going to get frames for them, but he is still going through with it. At this point I think I am going to tell Will he should put up joke shower curtain again and encourage him to put up his posters. As much as I don't like them, the longer I think about it the more I realize it doesn't matter in the end. I care way more about him than some decorations I don't like. I'm also hoping this will appease Maggie and Mark a little. I like listening to Reddit stories, and I've noticed that a lot of them have guys who start dating a girl that the guy friends don't like, and I'm terrified of becoming that girlfriend. I'm also scared of becoming too controlling. I have strong opinions on things and I want to voice those to Will because he is my best friend and boyfriend, but I also feel like I walk a fine line between voicing my opinions and being controlling or overly negative. In the end, this is both of ours first relationship. I feel very insecure, not in him but in myself and my decisions. The apparent dislike of our relationship from Maggie and Mark is also disheartening. They seem to think we spend too much time together, and I think may see us as a bit toxic together. I have asked Will what he thinks, but he thinks we are pretty healthy, so I don't know what to think. Neither Mark or Maggie have explicitly stated they don't like us dating, that is just the vibe that Will and I are getting. Does anyone have any advice? Things I should take into consideration since it's our first relationship? Are there key things that we are just missing? What steps should we take to make them more supportive again? I love Will so much. My biggest fear is losing him, and I am worried that this might grow into a bigger issue if we leave it as is. Sorry for the long rambling post. I think I should also mention that Will and I have a very open dialogue about this. We are both concerned. We will also be doing a 4-day trip with Mark and Maggie next week, so I'm hoping we can get closer and maybe ease some of their concerns then. Too long. Didn't read my boyfriend and I's friends who were supportive of our relationship at first now seem disapproving of it. What steps should we do to make them supportive again?
Am I the a-hole for telling my sister to leave her husband? My sister, 28, is in an emotionally abusive marriage, and she has admitted that to me. I've played nice to her husband, 30, for the past few years, even though I knew how he truly was to her behind closed doors. The incident that happened that finally made me and my whole family step up and say something to him and her was this. We went on a week-long family trip, and at the end of that trip he treated her so badly. There was a theater room in the rental house and we were all watching a movie. He asked her to get up from her comfortable chair to go and cuddle with him. She declined because her chair was more comfortable than his, and she was in front of her entire family and didn't want to cuddle. The entire next day after the cuddling incident, he stonewalled her. He would hold their 11-month-old son and not let her have him even when the baby called out for his mama. After lunch we decided to walk along a boardwalk, and that's when things took a turn for the worst. During the car ride, none of the family was in the car with them. He said he didn't know what the fuck was wrong with her and that he was going to go home when we all got back to the rental. Then he finished with a "fuck you." My sister said she didn't say anything back to him, 1. Because she was in shock, and 2. Because she didn't know what she did to make him so angry. My family naturally saw how upset my sister was and stepped in. My mom and I took the baby from him and took my sister aside while my dad and my husband had a talk with him. My dad told him he was acting like a little bitch and to go home if he was going to act like that. My husband said, "Let's go get the car seat out of your car and you can leave." He then opened up to my husband and said when she refused to cuddle with me, it made me feel like she was disgusted by me. He decided not to go home after all and instead have an adult conversation with my sister where he told her it was her fault that he acted that way. He continued to stonewall her for the rest of the trip and the next 2 days after they got back home. Before we left the rental, I told my sister she should leave him because we are all afraid that he will turn physically abusive toward her and maybe their son too. He's highly unstable and has guns because he's a cop. Also, he's in mandatory therapy from his work because they too think he's unstable. Note, a few things I forgot to mention. This happened a few weeks ago and my sister and brother-in-law have since had a discussion. She has decided to stay with him, but she is looking for a therapist for herself. She asked him to go to couples counseling, but he refused. He got a job in a different state and is now going to be moving them a few states away from everyone. She will be at least 6 hours away and we are all so scared for her, but we can't force her to leave him. Update 1. My sister sat down with him and told him that she was looking for a therapist and that she was unsure about the move. He seems to think it's because of her anxiety about it being such a big move and nothing more. He did tell her that he could look for a job in our state if she really wanted it. But she decided she wanted to focus on going to therapy first to learn how to communicate better with him. She found a therapist and was emailing with them to set up an appointment when her husband suddenly decided they need to get their house listed. I feel like he deliberately waited for her to find a therapist to do this. He doesn't know when his new job starts. He is scheduled to go back to police academy for 6 months starting in June. Which means they really wouldn't be moving until probably around mid to late May, so why would they need to list their house right now? Like I said, it seemed very calculated and deliberate to stop her from going to therapy, and it worked. I feel like I have done everything I can for my sister at this time. She knows if she ever needs anything I will be there, but that's all I can do. Update 2. First of all, thank you to everyone that gave advice in my first post. Since my sister decided to not go to therapy, I have noticed some changes. For one thing, when I went to their house last weekend, I noticed that my brother-in-law now parks behind my sister's car, blocking her in. He never used to park his truck there, so I thought it was weird that he suddenly started. My sister now acts as if the big incident never happened, just like her husband does. She did ask my mom and I to not bring it up anymore and to play nice. She really wants to make the marriage work and wants to, quote, give him another chance. Obviously, the rest of the family feels a little disappointed and very scared for her. I have since had to tell our mom to not call me and rant about my sister anymore. The stress of that situation was taking me to a dark place mentally, and I will not go there again. Especially for someone that is clearly not ready. My mom seemed a little disappointed in me for prioritizing my own mental health over my sister's, but she'll just have to deal with that. I have my own husband in life to put my energy in, and I feel much happier not thinking about my sister's relationship all the time. My own therapist has reassured me that I have done everything that I can and that my sister just isn't ready to leave her husband yet. Update 3. Okay, so a few things have happened since I last updated. First of all, my sister and her husband did not end up moving. He had a psych evaluation for the new job and a week later was told he was no longer a good fit. So that's one crisis averted. The rest of the family have only had to see him once, since the terrible trip, on my nephew's first birthday. He barely spoke to anyone, which was fine with us because we didn't want to be around him anyway. We're planning another family trip in September, a kind of redo. When my sister told her husband about it, he said, "You realize I'm not going, right?" She told him that was fine, but that she was still going and she was taking their son. He said he figured she would. I have a gut feeling that even though she says she's going, that she won't end up going. I think a few weeks before he'll start acting out, so she won't go, but we'll see. My mom still calls me to vent, but I think I upset her last week. My mom said she felt bad for my sister for always being in the middle and having to try to figure out how to make everyone happy. I told her I did not feel bad for my sister anymore because she chose that when she chose to stay with him. When she chose to stay with him, she had to know that the rest of us would never see him the same and that we don't like him. That even though she chose to forgive him, the rest of us can't simply forget how he treated her. My mom was clearly upset that I could be so heartless, but I just don't have the time and energy to constantly worry about my sister. Especially when she chose this by staying with him. My sister knows if she needs me, I'm there for her, and I feel like that's the most important thing. Update 4. A lot of you have been so kind in asking for updates, so here it is. This will probably be the last one. As a refresher, I'm 34 female, my sister is 28 female, and her husband 30 male. Months ago we decided to kind of have a redo for the family trip that was so badly ruined. Brother-in-law decided he wasn't going and the rest of us were thrilled with that. Well, 3 days before the trip he suddenly decided he was going to go after all and invited himself along. He nor myself sister paid a dime for the house we rented or the groceries while there. Naturally, I was livid when my sister texted me that he was in fact going. My mom called me to calm me down, but her words were to get over it, which should be noted that my mom has called me to complain about brother-in-law for multiple days a week for months, but suddenly I was the one that needed to get over it. But what sent me over the edge was her telling me to do it for my sister. I saw red. Like I didn't do anything for my sister. Hell, my husband and I let my sister and brother-in-law live with us rent-free for 6 months before the incident happened. Those were the longest 6 months of our lives. I even offered to pay for therapy for her or a lawyer if she ever needed one. But I swallowed all of that down and let it go. The trip happened and it was fine. Until my sister dropped the bomb that brother-in-law is once again trying to get a job 2 states away. My mom was unable to stop herself from saying something. My sister said that their marriage is in a good place and that she is excited for this opportunity. It was in that moment that my husband said my face changed. He said I looked so relieved. I told him it wasn't because her marriage is good, it's because when she said that something in brain clicked into place. I let everything go and let go of any worries I've had for my sister for the last few months. She's an adult. She has to make her own decisions and mistakes. I simply let it go from my mind. It's not my responsibility to worry about her life. I said I'm over the entire thing, I just want to live my life. I know that sounds harsh, but I can't allow her the mental space anymore. She is planning to move away and said she wants to have 4 more children. My husband and I are now planning a big trip to Japan next year. She knows if she ever needs me I will be there as quickly as I can, but until then I have to live my own life. Now when my mom calls to complain I tell her that it's not my life and that I let it go. If anything big ever happens I'll be sure to let you guys know. Until then this will be the end of the posts. At least I hope so.
Am I the a-hole for divorcing my husband because I've reached my limit? First-time poster, so please be gentle. I, 38 female, have been with my husband, 42 male, for nearly 18 years. We have a son together and only got married a few years ago. We had been together for many years, and he always said he never wanted to get married. He proposed with my grand's engagement ring, and we had a long engagement. The only reason he changed his mind and we got married was because my father was terminally ill, and I really wanted him to walk me down the aisle and see me happily married before he died. We had a very small wedding with only close family, no dancing, no big meal, no bridesmaids, etc. Just a courthouse wedding and a reception back at my parents' house. I should have seen the signs when he only stayed at our wedding for the ceremony, to cut a cake, and then he left, stating he had a sore back. He left me alone on our wedding day to celebrate with our families. My father died a couple of months later, then shockingly my mother was killed just a few weeks after. To say I was broken was an understatement. They left behind my gran, who had lived with them all my life, and by this time, well into her 90s. This is where the problems started. I stepped up for my gran and was there for her. I went down and cooked, cleaned, took her shopping, to doctor appointments, and sat and gave her some company and made sure she was okay. She was reeling from the loss of both of my parents and was terrified she was going to be put into a home. For context, my parents owned the house they all lived in and left it to me, along with a substantial amount of money. This is relevant later. I only went down to my gran when he was at work, and I also made sure our own house was clean, tidy, dinner prepared, looked after our son, dogs walked, and I paid all of the bills for both houses from my own money and also worked full-time. His money was always separate, and I have no idea what he spent it on, but he never contributed to the bills in any way over the years, apart from the car insurance. A few weeks later, he blows up at me and says I'm spending too much time with my gran and I neglecting my wifely duties, and I should put her in a home. This went down like a lead balloon, and we argued. I told him that wasn't going to happen. A, after everything she has been through in the past few months. B, she lived with us our whole life and gave up so much to take care of me and was a second mother to me that the least I could do was return the favor and look after her to the best of my abilities and make her feel safe, secure, and loved for her last few years. He seemed to accept this, and we moved on. Less than a month later, I receive messages from a girl saying she has been sleeping with my husband and sends me screenshots of messages he sent her stating, "My wife and I are separated. My wife doesn't understand me and I'm filing for divorce," plus many explicit messages. I was under no illusion and knew instantly they were genuine messages sent by my husband. I confronted him and moved in with my gran for a few weeks with my son. It took him weeks, but he wore me down and made me think I was mad, and somehow he made me semi-believe it wasn't true. He is an excellent manipulator, and we have it another go. COVID then hit, and at my husband's suggestion, after a long conversation, we both decided I should move in with my gran, as she was highly at risk, and he was an essential worker, so my son and I moved to my gran's. No one thought COVID would last as long as it did. But as the weeks turned into months, his mental health started to decline due to going home to an empty house every night and being away from his son so much. I tried everything I could within the guidelines to try and balance looking after my son, my gran, and his mental health. I made him dinner each evening, and he came round after work to wave to us and pick it up so he had a hot meal every night. We spoke 15 times a day at least. He video called our son all the time, and when the first lockdown was lifted, we created a bubble to include him. After a few more weeks, he blew up at me again, telling me I cared more about my gran than him, and then the nastiness started. He would message me that he wished we never got married. Wished my gran would hurry up and die so I can get my wife back, and tell me I was fat, ugly, useless, and he wished he never met me. That's just the Cliff Notes. Things deteriorated a lot more over the next few months, and nothing I said was right. I totally went into myself and cowered every time he appeared and jumped every time he texted or called. Friends and family noticed how withdrawn I was, but I lied and told them I was fine. I lost over 28 kilograms with the stress, my hair started to fall out, my face broke out. It was a bad time. He just got worse over the next few months. Every text or call was him being so nasty or screaming at me, threatening divorce or to kill himself, that I was in tears so many times it was unreal. Finally, my darling gran died at 101. I was by her side, and she died at home peacefully. I was broken. I hadn't dealt with the deaths of my parents as I had to be strong for my son and my gran, but I fell apart when I lost my gran. I went to therapy, and finally I started to grieve for my family and heal. I moved back into the house we shared and hoped things would be better once I was back, being a full-time wife. Boy, was I wrong. He started telling me what I could and couldn't wear, who I could talk to, who I could meet up with. Demanded to check my phone every night, put a tracker in the car, turned up twice at my work and started screaming at my boss, turned up at my staff party and nearly got into a full-blown fight with my coworker, who tired to defend me as I was 15 minutes late to go home. It was 9 p.m. and I went out at 6 p.m. and he told me I wasn't allowed to drink. My coworkers got rid of him and wouldn't let me go home that night. He called me at 2 a.m. and I answered. I had ignored over 100 missed calls, and he told me he had taken an overdose and was dying with my son upstairs. I ran home and called an ambulance, and he was taken away. He was fine, thankfully, but came home the next day and told me it was all my fault. If he had died, then I would have killed him. I begged him to go to counseling, but he refused. Over the next couple of days, he decided it never happened and tried to tell me it was all in my head and I was drunk. I was stone cold sober, as I knew drinking would cause so many problems. It wasn't worth it. Things got worse over the next few months, and finally, I snapped. I told him we either get marriage counseling or I divorce him. I was renovating my family home so we could move into it and have an amazing family home, and told him if he didn't want to try counseling, then I would move into there and he would have to take over all the bills on the house we were living in and be independent. He did not like this. We moved into my family home. He agreed to counseling and went to 2 sessions. He was so rude to our counselor and wouldn't do any of the worksheets she gave us. He walked out during sessions to go for a smoke. Told her she had no idea what she was talking about, and out marriage was perfect. This was the last straw. My counselor told me to run. Told me he would never change for the better and was exhibiting narcissistic behavior and gaslighting me, and she was extremely worried that he would one day seriously hurt me. After a mini row, one day he came home from work and told me he is divorcing me, so I said okay, fine, and ran with it. Now he is trying every trick in the book to try and get me to change my mind. He has dragged our son into it and tried to poison him against me. Luckily or unluckily, my son has seen and heard too much of his father behavior toward me to believe what his dad is saying. He is older now and says he thinks it's a good idea that we divorce as he wants both parents to be alive. This just strengthened my resolve. He won't leave the house. It's my house and was protected from him taking anything of it in the trust and is untouchable to him, thankfully. He has a lot of money of his own and doesn't need anything from me. He just won't leave. And it's a horrible atmosphere for me and my son. Am I the a-hole, or am I doing the right thing by sticking to my guns and wanting a divorce? I'm at my wit's end and need unbiased opinions, please.
Am I the a-hole for not wanting my boyfriend to hang out with our friend group anymore after I've been excluded? Hey everyone! This going to be really long as there is a lot of context. Sorry for that, but I really need advice on this situation. I'm 26 female and have been dating my boyfriend, let's call him Andrew, 26 male, for almost 8.5 years now. Andrew has two best friends, Sam, 26 male, and Randy, 25 male. We all went to the same university, though I was in a different building, and we've all known each other for around 5 years now. Sam has a girlfriend, Mary, 22 female. She also went to the same university for her undergrad, but she joined after we had already graduated. Sam and Mary met through one of Sam's junior friends, and they've been dating for about 3 years. Over time, we all became a close group of friends who hang out often since we now live in the same town. I also had a good relationship with Mary. When Mary first started dating Sam, Andrew happened to be living in the same city as our university. So, Sam introduced Andrew to her first when he came to visit. Because of that, Andrew and Mary started hanging out often and became really close friends. Through them, I also started talking to Mary, and we eventually became good friends too. At first, Randy was a bit skeptical of Mary because of Sam's past relationships, but eventually he started liking her a lot as a person, and they developed a close friendship as well. I'll be honest, at times, I did feel a bit jealous of Mary. Not in a mean way, but more out of admiration. She's fun, pretty, and smart. She also got into a really prestigious MBA program in the country, and sometimes the way Randy and Andrew seemed to admire her made me feel a bit insecure. Randy has always been a close friend of mine too, though I was never particularly close to Sam. So, the trouble started about 8 months ago. Randy began dating a girl, let's call her Susan, 27 female. Susan works in the same field as me, social media management for brands, specifically in customer relations. Naturally, we clicked pretty fast and became close friends. We even discovered that we had attended a few of the same professional events before but had just never crossed paths. Gradually, Susan and I started spending more time together, sometimes at work-related events and sometimes during casual hangouts with the group. Now, here's where things got a little messy. Susan hated Mary. And it was very obvious. Whenever we all hung out together, you could feel the tension. Susan often made a lot of backhanded comments toward Mary during our hangouts, things about her outfits, her education, or her big corporate job. Mary works as a strategy consultant at a pretty big company. Mary would usually brush it off or shut it down quickly to avoid ruining the evening. But sometimes, Susan took it a step further. For example, during one hangout, Susan point-blank asked Mary in front of everyone if she'd gotten a boob job. Mary, bless her, just laughed it off and said, "No, but if you really want the contact of a good surgeon, I can ask my friend who works in cosmetology and get you the best deals." Susan was livid after that pushback from Mary. After we all left, she called me and absolutely trashed Mary, using a few choice words. I kept my cool and reminded her that her question had been inappropriate and completely out of line. She shot back that she doesn't act this way without reason. Then she went on a bit of a rant, saying that Mary always tries to make both of us look small by talking about her job and education, that she dresses up just to show off her and her boyfriend's money, and that she only does it for attention because of her perfect body. Susan also pointed out, rather bitterly, that I didn't seem to notice how Randy and Andrew love Mary so much, and that both of them always defend her instead of siding with us, their girlfriends. I'll admit, because of my own insecurities, I did end up agreeing with most of what Susan said about Mary, which I now realize was wrong. Slowly, I started to distance myself from Mary and got closer to Susan. Sometimes I even took part in her bashing. Whenever we did that in front of Randy or Andrew, though, they'd immediately step in, telling us not to talk like that or straight up defending Mary. It was pretty clear that all this was putting a lot of strain on Randy and Susan's relationship. Andrew and I even had a huge fight about it and eventually compromised that I wouldn't talk badly about Mary, but he wouldn't force me to change my opinion. Mary definitely noticed the shift and even tried to talk to me about it, but I brushed her off. Fast forward to about 2 months ago, we all decided to take a small weekend getaway to a nearby beach. And that's where everything really went down. The first day at the beach was normal. We reached in the evening and decided to take a walk, sit by the ocean, and just relax. Overall, it was a very chill evening. At night, we went to a bar. It had live music and a generally cozy vibe. Later in the night, the singer asked for volunteers from the crowd. Immediately, both Randy and Sam started cheering for Mary, since she had been part of the college band 2 years ago. Mary initially shot them death glares and refused to sing. When the singer came over to our table and insisted multiple times, Mary reluctantly took the mic. As soon as she got up, Susan shot her a smug look and said something along the lines of, "Why pretend you don't want to sing when we all know how much you love attention? Don't act like we forced you to sing." The table went dead silent. Sam tried to interject, but Mary told him not to bother and went on stage. She sang 3 songs, and she was really good. People even requested 2 more songs after her first performance. After all the applause, she came back to the table, excused herself and Sam, and said she was too tired from driving and just wanted to crash. She mentioned she would see us in the morning at the beach where we had planned to go swimming. She and Sam left, and the rest of us felt so awkward about what had just happened that we went straight to our room. Day 2, the D-Day. We all were at the beach in the morning, waiting for Sam and Mary to join us. Susan and I were both wearing one-piece swimsuits. Susan's suit wasn't exactly very modest, it had some revealing designs, if you know what I mean. Mary came down wearing a burgundy bikini. It wasn't scandalous, but Mary is very blessed in terms of her body, kind of like Sofia Vergara in her prime, so it naturally drew attention. As soon as Sam and Mary appeared, you could immediately sense that Susan was going to go ballistic. We all went swimming and started playing in the water. In the middle of it, Susan pulled me aside and said, "What Mary is wearing is disrespectful to us. Wearing such revealing clothes around our boyfriends is really inappropriate. We need to talk to her." I agreed, and we pulled Mary aside. The conversation went something like this. Susan said, "It's strange that you're always trying to draw attention to yourself. Dressing like that, especially around our boyfriends, you should tone it down." Mary replied, clearly irritated, "What do you mean? Are you implying something?" Susan pressed, "It's obvious you wear revealing clothes for attention. You have a boyfriend, so act appropriately. Stop hanging around Randy and Andrew so closely. It's disrespectful. As a woman, you should know your limits." Mary shot back firmly, "I really don't understand what you mean. I'm just wearing what I'm comfortable in, and I'm not doing anything wrong. You seem to have a problem with everything I do, but I don't care about your opinion. If you have an issue with your boyfriend, take it up with him. Stop imposing your insecurities onto me." Susan said, "I could be wrong, but if both of us feel the same way, we can't be entirely wrong. You should respect our feelings." Then Susan turned to me and said I felt the same way. Mary looked at me with hurt in her eyes. I reluctantly admitted, "Yes, I do." Mary's expression shifted to anger. "I don't care what you both think. Whatever goes on in your minds doesn't matter. I'm not going to stand here and let you talk nonsense to me anymore." I thought ignoring stupidity would make it easier, but clearly, it's not working. If you continue to spout such nonsense, I'm not going to hold back anymore." With that, she walked away. After that, Mary, I think, went and told Sam everything, and they decided to leave. Andrew and Randy immediately asked what was going on. Mary said she wanted to talk to them later, but not right now. She just wanted to leave, she wasn't feeling well. Andrew and Randy insisted, but she kept repeating that they should drop it for now. She needed to take care of herself. Then Susan jumped in, "Your constant hunger for attention is never satisfied. Again, you're trying to make everything about yourself, drawing attention, making a big deal out of everything." Mary finally lost it and yelled, "You know what? I've been putting up with your stupid antics for long enough just to keep the peace and try not to ruin the vibe. But it seems like you can't take a hint and just ruin every hangout with us. I didn't even want to come on this trip because of you, but I tried, because I wanted my friends to have a good time. But guess what? You just ruined the vibe for everyone. I think you feel like, since I haven't pushed back enough, I'll let you walk all over me. Your insecurities, your constant need to put me down, and your desire to feel superior, it's pathetic. I really think you should go to therapy to work out these issues, which you're clearly projecting onto me." At this point, even I joined in a bit to support what Susan was saying. I tried to explain that it wasn't meant to be taken this way and we were just trying to talk to her. But Susan also started firing back, and soon there was a constant back and forth between the three of us. Then Susan crossed the line and said, "It's not my fault that you decided to dress like a whore, exposing your body this way around our boyfriends. If you weren't trying to seduce them, maybe we would have respected you more." That's when Mary slapped her really hard. She had tears in her eyes. I had never seen her cry before, but her face was a mixture of rage and disgust. Then, in a very calm and terrifying voice given how furious she was, she said, "Choose your next words very carefully, Susan, because I am done with both of your crap." Susan looked at Randy for help, but he just looked disgusted, not just at Susan, but at both of us. Andrew interjected, "Slut-shaming Mary like that is really a new low for you." Susan started crying and explaining how unwelcome she felt because of how Mary treated her. She brought up several incidents, like the time Mary didn't add her to her private Instagram account, where everyone else was added, which Susan interpreted as a deliberate exclusion. She also talked about other moments where she felt Mary acted superior or dismissed others. While she was crying and recounting these experiences, she framed it as though both of us had wronged her collectively. This made things worse for me because it made it feel like my own feelings were being pulled into her narrative, even though I hadn't felt the same way about Mary. The whole group looked at both of us, shocked and disappointed. Mary calmly said, "Don't worry, your dear accomplice. We'll be joining you out of my followers list soon," pointing towards me. After that little breakdown on the beach, we all went back to our room. Andrew and I had the biggest fight. During it, he made me realize how Susan had been including me in her insecurities and subtly poisoning me against Mary. He pointed out a bunch of other things too, and it really hit me how badly I had let things go. I understood that a lot of what happened was partly my fault, and I wanted to apologize to Mary. Meanwhile, Randy and Susan broke up. This time, Susan had clearly taken things too far. That evening, we all returned back to our town, still processing everything that had happened. After all of this, I reached out to Mary to apologize. She accepted my apology, but it was clear she wasn't very moved. She told me that our relationship couldn't go back to what it was and that she was still very hurt by the whole situation. I told her I was willing to wait as long as she was willing to forgive me. Mary replied, "Don't bother. This relationship might never repair. I will try to be friendly around you since Andrew is a really good friend, but don't expect a friendship with me again." Now, to my problem, since all of this, our regular hangouts have completely changed. Sam doesn't come to hangouts when I'm around. Usually, I only hang out with Andrew and Randy, but even Randy seems more distant. When Andrew and Randy go to Sam and Mary's place, all four of them hang out together, and they look really happy. Seeing that makes me feel left out and sad, like I'm being excluded. Even though Andrew and Randy come back to hang out at my place sometimes, Randy doesn't seem as close to me anymore. I feel like he might even have some lingering resentment toward me. Whenever I see posts on Instagram of Andrew, Randy, Sam, and Mary hanging out, I can't help but feel hurt, even though I know I played a part in all of this. To make things more complicated, Susan has been texting me a lot after her breakup with Randy. I even tried to reason with Randy about taking Susan back, which might also be contributing to the distance I feel from him. So, now I'm really struggling. I feel hurt and left out that my own boyfriend hangs out with his friends, including Mary and Sam, while I'm excluded. I know I'm partly to blame for all of this, but I can't help how I feel. Would I be the asshole if I told my boyfriend to stop hanging out with Mary and Sam because their presence makes me feel excluded? Or am I being unreasonable for wanting that? Edit, I agree I have messed up big time. I have already blocked Susan and have gone NC with her. I will taking your advice and will be talking to my BF first, and then will probably reach out to Mary to apologize properly and sincerely. Thanks to all who offered genuine advice and those of you who are being mean here. I get your anger towards me, but please try to be kind. Also, if you all have not guessed it yet, English is my second language. That is why the conversations sound weird in the post, as they all took place in my mother tongue and I had to translate them in order to give you context.
Am I the a-hole for still not liking my brother-in-law, even after being married to my sister for 5 years and having 2 kids together? My 21 male older sister, 24 female, have been married for 5 years now to her husband, 37 male, after being together for 3 years before that. Yes, he was with my 16-year-old sister when he was 29. My parents were okay with that, because we were dead broke, and he was my dad's lawyer friend's son. He already had a huge luxurious house and was a millionaire. My parents thought he'd give my sister a better life than they could ever do, and technically, I guess, yay, he did. She has designer stuff and jewelry, and she drives a brand new Mercedes C300. She never complains about him, and he always gets her flowers randomly and takes her out on dates all the time. I guess he's a good dad to both his kids, and they both love him. He also helps out my parents a lot around the house since he's into handiwork, and he's helped them with bills and even got my dad a new Corolla for his birthday back in June. He's a good guy, I guess, but I was never able to get past the fact that he got with my goddamn 16-year-old sister, and I've always hated him for it. Last week was his birthday, and they threw him a birthday party at his house, and both my parents and his family went. I didn't. My dad blew up at me after the party because I keep embarrassing them. He told me he's a good guy and has given my sister a life that she could never have gotten otherwise, and that he has also helped our family a lot, and that I should be grateful for him. He told me my sister is his wife now, and me throwing a fit would not change that. He says I either move on and apologize to my brother-in-law, or he will disown me, and that he'll be his only son. Am I the a-hole for not moving on from this?
Am I the a-hole because my girlfriend wants to take her ex-husband to her work Christmas party? I've, 35 male, been with my girlfriend, 44 female, for 9 months. When we met, she was open about the fact that she had fully separated from her ex and that they would be starting official divorce proceedings. Those started around 1 month ago, and it's basically in the early stages. Yesterday we were talking about work Christmas parties, and she told me her workplace are currently running a poll where the options were, go alone, go with your partner, or say you're not going. When I asked what she was thinking of doing, she said she needed to talk to her ex-husband about it because she was going to take him if that option won, because she didn't want to go and sit alone while everyone else was there with their spouses. Obviously I reacted pretty badly to this. She said she couldn't bring me because nobody there knew about me/us. She had started her job about 3 months before we met, and everyone there was basically under the impression that she was still married, as that's how things had been when she joined, and she didn't like lots of people knowing her business, separating, divorce, etc., so she just went along with it. She said that bringing me would therefore be weird, and she temporarily wanted everything to still look normal by bringing him. I questioned why she would need to go and pretend to essentially strangers. She could easily just go on her own instead, and she told me I didn't understand how difficult it was for her. She told me I was making it all about me by asking to be prioritized. In my eyes it was just consideration, that I was acting irrational and being jealous and that she didn't have to run any of her decisions by me. She then started crying, hung up on me and texted me to say she wanted space for a few hours, but she hasn't been in touch since and that was 24 hours ago. I haven't reached out because I feel I haven't done anything wrong. I feel really horrible about her wanting to take him along so easily because it feels like she has not considered my feelings about it. We didn't have a conversation about it, she just told me, and so to me it feels a little disrespectful to me in our relationship. I know we've not been together long either, so maybe I have no right to be involved in her decisions, but I would expect to at least have a convo about that because that decision does directly affect us. I also don't understand why she needs to go and pretend to people she doesn't really know and why she wouldn't have just been able to take that opportunity to explain, but I don't know if I am just being selfish like she said. Am I the a-hole? I've never been married, so I don't know if I have just majorly downplayed everything and been inconsiderate. Honestly appreciate everyone's advice and opinions. Update, next day. Firstly, I want to thank everyone for their responses. I never expected to get so many and I read all of them, yeah, even the painful ones. There were some great pieces of advice, perspective and wisdom, so I really appreciate everyone's comments. Second, there were a lot of repeating questions that I didn't answer in the post because it all moved way too quick, so I wanted to answer those now in case those commenters were still wondering. Who filed and did I definitely know they were divorcing? My ex-girlfriend had always made out that she had begun proceedings. Honestly, I don't know for definite that they are, but she did have a few meetings with a lawyer when I was with her and she'd moved into her own place in March, so to me all the signs pointed that way, but of course it may not have been the truth. Why would her ex-husband agree to go? This is a solid question, and if I'm honest from what she told me about him, I genuinely don't think he would have. One of the reasons she gave for their marriage collapsing was that he became more antisocial and introverted and stopped wanting to go anywhere and do anything with her. I think that's why it felt worse, because if she was telling the truth about him, she was willing to take someone who had previously on multiple occasions said he didn't want to go and do things. If I'm honest on reflection, I think that this is an example of her refusing to face reality and clinging onto her old identity. Thank you so much to the commenters who gave me this insight. She just thought he'd agree because previously he probably always begrudgingly has, and she hadn't appreciated or logically thought about the weight of what she would be asking. If it was me, I certainly would have said no like everyone else said they would too. So on to the update, we split up. Thanks to all the perspectives here, I text her to say that I hope she was okay and that the space had given me time to reflect on the situation. I explained that I could see things from her perspective and what her intentions might have been, but that I was hurt that she hadn't felt she could communicate that with me first, as if she had, the outcome might have been different and we could have worked something out. However, I felt her behavior in calling me selfish and the not running decisions by me etc. was disrespectful and inconsiderate, and that was now my major problem in moving forward with the relationship. She replied to say that if I was going to just bring another source of pain and stress to her life, then I may as well go, because I was still making the whole thing about me and my feelings and not appreciating her not breaking apart at the seams while her life did, so she'd be taking more space until I decided what I wanted. Thanks to all of you, I realized how invalidating and again, manipulative that was, so I told her we'd make the space permanent and wished her all the best. Her response was just okay and asking if she could still use my Netflix password. So, I changed it. Then she texted again a little while later asking why I'd changed it and could I put it back because it had locked her out of a show she was watching, so I had a good laugh to myself about the irony of decision making without running it by her, and didn't respond. On to better things and a definite lesson learned for the future and seeing the red flags. I also just wanted to thank the commenters who have lived it and shared their experiences. It did make it easier to understand what her motivations/intentions might have been for carrying on as normal. As I said in a previous comment, she had had a bad experience with a previous job and was out of work for some time in between. I also knew she was nervy about this one as it was beginning to ramp up. I can see why she may have obfuscated the truth so that her employers didn't think she had any personal distractions, which might have stopped her being at her sharpest. Where we live, you need 2 years to be safe from being fired, and she was only a year in. I can totally get why someone's suddenly on their own with individual finances, plus lawyer fees and divorce settlement. If true, fees would not want to risk their income suddenly being shut off or being back out of work for a long period. Having said that, I also agree with everyone that there's a difference between obfuscating the truth and showing up with your ex and essentially playing pretend when there was the option of going alone and just making an excuse for them, though I guess I can also see why maybe that would feel awkward or uncomfortable being surrounded by others. End of the day, if she had come to me and explained, maybe we could have worked it out. However, she didn't, and everyone was right that her behavior and attitude towards me / the situation was incredibly disrespectful and problematic in the end. Once again, a massive thanks to this community.
Thanks for listening. Like, comment, and subscribe.